Welcome back to Sunday Vibes, one and all. We are back in the glorious Clubhouse 5, just off of Leicester Square. I'm joined by Doogie Critchley. I'm joined by Patrick Van Straten. Doogs, we were both here midweek, weren't we? To watch the Champions League. Pato was nowhere to be seen. Where were you? At home?
At home.
Watching the game from home. But we had a great time here, didn't we?
Oh, it was unreal, yeah. It's a great setup here. And what a game as well. I've never seen Real Madrid look so average. And Man City just completely dominated them. I think it was my favourite Pep Guardiola Man City performance, I think. I think they were absolutely awesome. Bernardo Silva was sensational. Camavinga, unfortunately, got a little bit found out of position. But yeah, what an absolute demolition job.
Yeah, 100%. How's your week been, Pato? Did you enjoy the game?
No, I thought it was really boring. It objectively was really boring. I have seen Real Madrid be that average. I feel like the first 10-15 minutes of every game, they're kind of crap. It's just that City were able to keep the pressure on and make them crap for the whole game. You remember those first 10 minutes against Liverpool? We were like, oh my God, what's about to happen here? And then Madrid were like, oh wait, we can just walk through you. I thought Camavinga was much better once he went into midfield. But I'm hoping the final is a little bit more unpredictable than these semis have turned out to be.
Yeah, so am I.
Newest fan.
We're all into now, aren't we? Fours are into. We're all into from this point onwards. But as you will have been able to see from the title, today we're focusing on a different side in Europe. We're focusing on Paris Saint-Germain, who have obviously had well-documented issues recently, and to be honest with you, for the entirety of the Qatari reign, really.
Yep.
But there's plenty coming this summer with the news that Lionel Messi looks set to move on, potentially Neymar being moved on, Christophe Galtier being moved on. We thought we would go back to the old school format of how to fix. Today, I am going to be playing the sporting director of PSG, replacing Luis Campos, who quite frankly isn't a sporting director anyway. Let's have it absolutely right. He's a football advisory consultant employed by the club, technically only part-time. Because he also does.
That's like me at FD.
It's literally you at FD. So I'm replacing Luis Campos. I'm coming into the club and wanting to make sweeping changes. Boys.
I think good. I'm glad to see you finally.
Well, before we get into the changes we're going to be making, what have we made of yet another crap PSG season?
Yeah, a bit embarrassing really, because they started the season really, really well.
Yeah.
I think they went unbeaten through their first 16 games. They won 14 of them. And yeah, they went unbeaten until the 28th of December. But this calendar year, it's been absolutely shocking. I think they've lost 6 and drawn 1 of their 19 games, I think, this calendar year. They're beaten by Rennes twice. They're beaten by Lyon. They got knocked out of the Coupe de France by Marseille. They didn't put up a fight against Bayern Munich whatsoever.
Yeah.
Thought they were really meek in that second leg in particular. I think Messi and Mbappe had 1 shot on target each. Couldn't really get into the game and just got completely dominated by a side that were playing really well in the Champions League under Nagelsmann at that stage. Obviously didn't materialise against Man City once Tuchel came in. But I think they paid the price really for finishing second in that group. They did have a difficult group with Juventus and Benfica. And it actually went down to away goals scored. So they scored exactly the same amount. They conceded the same amount. They had the same goal difference. Went down to away goals scored, which I think is the first time in Champions League history. Then drew Bayern. But were just embarrassing. And this is a team that was supposedly regenerated last summer under Luis Campos. Christophe Galtier coming in. Felt like they were going back to a partnership that had worked really well at Lille between Campos and Galtier, getting in a French manager and signing Vitinha, Renato Sanchez, Fabian Ruiz, like younger, more agile players. But it just hasn't materialised at all. And it's been the same thing that happens every year. After February, they just collapse.
Yeah, I think the World Cup didn't help them either, because there was a lot of emotion around that club, wasn't there? Neymar crashing out in not amazing fashion, then Mbappe losing a final, Messi winning a final. I think the emotion around those front three didn't help, but I totally agree. I think it was actually 23 games unbeaten at the start of the season.
Maybe in all comps,
Galtier was absolutely flying in the build-up to that World Cup. But again, issues persist with the fans off the pitch not liking the players that are on the pitch. They are quite an unlikable bunch of stars, or perceived to be quite lazy, not hard-working enough. We've seen the ultras come out, haven't we? Boycotting games, protesting outside Neymar's house, protesting outside the training ground. They're not the biggest fan of Lionel Messi, consistently getting booed in recent weeks. Neymar no longer favoured by the fans, or maybe even by the club at this stage. So my first act, I think, as sporting director, is to get rid of Christophe Galtier. I think the connection with Campos was obviously there, And we saw that Campos was effectively given that job because Kylian Mbappe wanted it in that role. He'd worked with him so closely at Monaco, hadn't he? And Mbappe even got to the level where, according to The Athletic anyway, he was recommending transfers to Luis Campos. Players that he wanted him to sign. He wanted him to bring in Lewandowski, he wanted him to bring in Skriniar and such, and Chouameni. But my first act is to get rid of Gautier. So let's have a think about potential managers. Who are you boys pitching me? I've walked into the room. Bonjour. Ça va?
Bonjour, ça va? Oui.
Ça va bien, merci.
Pat, you can do the French.
Pat, who's your suggestion for manager of PSG?
I think this is a difficult one because the question is, do we want to start winning as soon as possible? Or do we want to do what I think is much more important, which is put in a playing style and also try and develop that connection to the fans? Because the thing about Paris Saint-Germain is they are the only big club in Paris, really.
Yes.
And yet they are not the favourite club of Parisians. You know, people don't really care about them. And generally speaking, what we've seen over the last few years is that PSG uses its academy as a way to fund moves for superstars who are generally not French, or at least have not come up at
And
PSG.
this is a problem for the fans. That's a
Yeah,
major
no,
problem for the fans.
and understandably so, because Paris actually produces more top 5 league talent than any other city in the world. And yet guys like Diaby, Nkunku go off to different clubs. Rabiot, Kingsley Coman. Like, these guys disappear. And it does feel like there's very little on the pitch for fans to get excited about, in a way, except for just like superstars who are clearly there for a paycheck. So I do think that something that would be good would be trying to get a manager in who's going to try and build that connection. So I look at their squad and I think, okay, this looks quite well set up for Conte. And we want someone who's going to win. Conte's going to do it. He's going to find a way to put this talent together. He's got the kind of aura that's going to work with the big stars. But I also think that it's worth having a talk to someone like Arteta, who played for PSG. I also would think that maybe an interesting guy to talk to is Luciano Spalletti. And I think Spalletti is probably more gettable. I don't think you're going to get Arteta right now. But I think you need somebody like that. And actually, I think any manager can work so long as the club backs them. If the manager says to a player, if you don't press, if you don't do what I tell you to, you are benched. And the good thing is that now, with Messi going and Neymar kind of reaching an age where he doesn't have to be a nailed-on starter all the time, I do think that now you might actually get to a good point where a manager can say, you're benched. If you don't do what I tell you to, you're on the bench, and that's how it goes. And in a way, I think it's been really positive that they were able to put together that Neymar, Mbappe, Messi front line, because what it's shown once and for all is talented individuals are not going to cut it.
Yeah.
Like, that will not do it.
Yeah.
You're going to have to do something else. So I think that getting someone like Spalletti in, who plays a dominant front foot style, I think Messi leaving actually helps as well, the balance of the side. That to me is a step forward. And it's not too hard to see how Mbappe and Neymar could be a kind of Kvaratskhelia, Osimhen for PSG. You've just got to solidify the rest of the squad.
I have to say, after speaking to Nasser as well, Nasser Al-Khelaifi, obviously we saw his interview in Le Parisien last year where he talked about the end of the glitter, that he wanted to, over the next few years, have a team that was exclusively Parisian.
Cool.
A 1-11 of Paris-born players, which, probably isn't feasible right now, and it's going to take an awful long time. It's a big U-turn away from the current project, but that's what he wants, and I think that's what ultras and fans of PSG want. There's a big problem with sort of tourist culture right now at PSG, of a large amount of fans that are going there purely to see Messi, purely to see Neymar. I think that means a lot of the fans have become disillusioned and disconnected with the club. There's also the issue, with the Parc des Princes, as PSG not able to buy that out and hold, and they're kind of talking about, should we move to the Stade de France? And obviously PSG fans don't want that. So I think to get a connection with a manager is key.
And it's not even about just French players. It's something that we actually talked about with United previously, where we were like, they need players who look like they're pleased to be there, not who are there
100%
to take the paycheck. It doesn't matter whether they are necessarily like born and raised in Paris, because Mbappe is born and raised in Paris. They need to be guys who look like they're pleased to play for PSG.
100%. I'm going to discount Antonio Conte as well. He's obviously a good manager, but terrible European record as well.
Sure.
And PSG are going to be still focusing, even while this is happening, on good results in Europe. Dukes, have you got anything as exciting as Spalletti/Arteta?
Yeah, it's probably the biggest curveball, because I was known for being quite anti this guy when he was in the Premier League. But I'm bringing in Mourinho, baby. I am bringing in Mourinho. Look, I think PSG will struggle to attract a really top caliber of manager. I don't think they can get a Nagelsmann or a Luis Enrique, for example. Probably the two best available this summer. I wouldn't be surprised if they get Zidane. I wouldn't be surprised if they bring in Conte. And actually,
You think they can't get Nagelsmann, but they could get Zidane?
I don't think Nagelsmann would want to take the PSG job right now. I feel like you've only got 12 to 18 months there. I mean, look at the managers that have failed there.
Not now I'm there.
Okay, Joe is a change of culture potentially, but at current rates, Nagelsmann can't afford his next job to fail. And I think PSG, you're almost guaranteed to fail. Especially with the amount of work they need.
Not under me. You've been very negative about your own sporting director here.
Okay, not under Joe, but I'll make the case for Mourinho. Basically, Mourinho has had quite a weird time at Roma. I think it's fair to say they spent a huge amount of money in his first year, and some of those signings didn't work out at all. Shomorodov, Kumbula, Matthias Vinhas now at Bournemouth, but Tammy Abraham did. They won the UEFA Conference League, their first trophy in 14 years. This year, they didn't really spend anything in the summer. I think they had financial fair play issues. I think they made something like a €50 million net profit. The only player they brought in for any money at all was Zeki Celik. They brought in Dybala on a free, Wijnaldum on loan, Matic on a free, Belotti on a free. So he's done
big wages,
but in terms of his backing, he hasn't actually had that much. And it's a really competitive Serie A race for top four. They're now out of it, but he's got them to Europa League final. And they've beaten Real Sociedad along the way. They've beaten Feyenoord, who've just won the Eredivisie. They've just beaten Bayer Leverkusen, one of the form teams in the Bundesliga. And he's now set up a 6th European final, and he's won all 5 of his previous ones. But this is a guy that is an elite European manager.
I was watching bits of the Europa League last night, Leverkusen versus Roma.
They had one shot.
It's unwatchable.
It is unwatchable, but also Bayer Leverkusen didn't look particularly dangerous. This is a guy that has coached the best defence in Europe this season on expected goals against. And they are a very good defensive side. And I think with the right backing, he could make a PSG a much better unit. And also, I think it's slightly underrated. People always say that, attacking players struggle under him. I don't think that's necessarily true.
I don't think that's true.
Harry Kane had a great year under him. Dybala's played phenomenally well this year. Tammy Abraham was exceptional last year. And yes, maybe the goals aren't spread around the team as much as under any other manager. But I think he is very good at getting his elite players in great shape. And also, he's always get accused of, he doesn't use young players. And whether through that's the lack of spending this summer or whatever, he's actually done that at Roma. Zalewski's become a key player. Bove, who scored the key goal in the Bayer Leverkusen first leg, has broken into that side.
Yeah, but as you say,
used a number of 20, 21-year-olds this year. It's a pretty good effect.
But as you say, that's partially because he's not really been backed with the squad. And also, I mean,
if he had backing, would he be signing these young players?
Yeah, would he
didn't sign them. He's just bringing them into the...
Yeah, exactly, but would he give them
minutes? He's also had injury issues as well. I think he's done a pretty good job at Roma.
I think he has as well, but I just think the toxicity of that situation does not need Mourinho thrown into it. And plus,
I think he's a natural fit.
Plus, I think that Mourinho is also part of the problem with PSG, which is PSG have wanted to win the Champions League for a long time, but they don't want to win the Champions League. They want to win the Champions League next year. It's always, we have to win the Champions League next year. Yeah. And instead, their strategy should be, at some point in the next 5 years, we want to win the Champions League. Because they always want to do it next year. They make decisions based on next year.
I agree.
And I feel like Mourinho would be another one of those.
I just think he's more realistic than, say, Spalletti. I don't see him swapping this Napoli project right now. I don't see Arteta walking away from Arsenal right now. I don't think Nagelsmann goes to PSG. And then you're looking at Zidane, you're looking at Luis Enrique, you're looking at Mourinho. And I think on the basis of this season, those two have been out of work for a while. I'm getting Mourinho in.
Dude, I think it's a really good pitch.
It is a good pitch.
You pitched in really well there. I'm not going to lie. But I still have in my head too many toxic images of how things end up with Jose Mourinho.
You've been hurt personally.
I've been hurt personally by him. I know people that have been hurt personally by him. But the thing is...
Isn't Zidane kind of like... If they can get Zidane... They've tried to get Zidane a couple of times before.
I don't think Zidane's going to go.
I think if you've got him, wouldn't you say he's the ideal kind of blend of everything?
But I think if Zidane was realistic and actually wanted to come to the club, they would have had Zidane in charge by now. Like, if Zidane
doesn't want to go.
Was keen, Galtier would not have got that job. Let's be absolutely clear.
Where he is going, though, Zidane, because Max Allegri probably doesn't look like he's going to leave Juventus now, especially if they don't. They don't have any money to fire him anyway. So I think Zidane's just. I don't know where he goes.
Yeah, waiting for Ancelotti to take a break, then he'll come back in for a couple of years, then Carlo can come back in. They're just going to keep doing handoffs. I know it's an extremely punchy shout. I am going to go Spalletti. I think it's going to be difficult to get him out of Roma. Probably impossible to get him out of Napoli. Probably impossible to get him out of Napoli. But you know what? We've got the cash. I'm going to be your convincer. We've got Nasser on side. We've got Mbappe coming through the door to have a little word with him because he's also a sporting director at this stage. I'm going for Spalletti.
I'd rather watch that. Fair enough.
And I think it does allow for a little bit of planning, but it also allows for short-term success because we know how effective he is as a coach. So we've talked about the managerial situation. We're saying Spalletti through the door. A couple of suggestions for Arteta and Jose knocked off. But I was looking at the squad yesterday. I think this serious surgery
I'm
needs
gutting
doing.
it.
You gutting it?
Yeah.
Seriously?
Yeah, loads.
Should we start with the stars? Do you want to start
Sure.
with the front three who have caused so many problems for so many reasons this season?
Yeah,
Who's
for
staying?
Sure. Mbappe, 100%.
You're culling Neymar.
Culling, if you can. I don't think they will be able to, but Messi's obviously going to go, and I don't think it's a disaster if Neymar stays around, because when he is fit, which isn't enough, and when he is available, he is still one of the best players in the world, and his record at PSG speaks to that. I think he's at 1.1 goal contributions per game across his entire time at PSG.
But it's a
The
problem
Champions
he's not
League
fit.
I agree, but where's he going to go?
If you ain't fit, you ain't it, and he ain't it right
Who's
now.
going to buy him?
Yeah, you can't move him.
Well,
There are
we
maybe
say
5
this.
clubs in Europe that can afford his wages. You cannot shift him.
We say this. The Saudis are making big plays.
He's not gonna go.
They're paying 500
It's too young
million over 2 years for Leo. They're paying big money for Cristiano. Why would they not come in for
You're probably going to have to
Neymar?
let him go for free to make that happen. I don't think they'll do that. It's just not going to happen.
So you are telling me we should be keeping Neymar?
You
Well,
have to
it-
plan for him being.
Yeah, you can't.
Okay.
You can't. Yeah,
That's fine.
guarantee that he'll
We
leave.
can plan for Neymar remaining at the club, but we are saying Lionel Messi definitely leaves. That's been a totally failed experiment, really, hasn't it?
Yeah, I mean the second season's been a lot better than the first in terms of his playing, but obviously, I was pretty strong about Cristiano Ronaldo and his behaviour at Man United and then going to Saudi Arabia. To be honest, I think we need to come with similar-esque energy with Messi. Like he went mid-season for an unauthorised trip to Saudi to work for a state, basically as a jumped-up tourist guide. And now he's got suspended by the club for 2 weeks. It is gone south so quickly.
The fans
And
don't want him there.
The fans don't want him there, and it hasn't really worked out. I mean, playing-wise, he's got 15 goals and 15 assists in the league this year. He's still a phenomenal player, but has he made them a better side? No.
All right, so we're saying the fans don't want him there. My 2 sporting advisors don't want him there. Lionel Messi is not getting renewed. First out the door. There are some other names, though, I think, are cullable in this squad. Pat, is there anyone in particular you think potentially you would be binning?
I mean,
Would you be re-upping Sergio Ramos, for instance, who's out of contract this summer?
No, I would let him go, especially with Skriniar coming in. Like, I think you've got Skriniar coming in, you've got Kimpembe, you've got Marquinhos, you've got your boy, what's he called? El Shaddai Bichiabu. Like,
Bichiabu.
You got like, I don't know. I'm not too worried about that. I think the defense is fine. Get rid of Ramos. Absolutely fine with me. Mukiele as well. You can play centre back. I don't think you have to sell that many people, but there's almost nobody I wouldn't be willing to sell.
Other than Mbappe, or would you be?
No,
willing
I'd want to
entertain
keep. I'd keep
offers?
Ruiz. I'd keep Verratti. I would keep Vitinha. I'd keep most of the defenders. But I'm just saying that if somebody comes in with a big offer, I'm not like, oh God, what are we gonna do? Like, definitely let Soler go. One of your keepers, let them go. Bernat. If somebody's gonna offer you money for Renato Sanchez, fine. I personally hate Kimpembe and would sell him, but I think you keep him because he's left-footed. He solves a problem. Like, it's
He is
fine.
out of contract 2024, though. In fact, so is the whole backline pretty much. I mean, Marquinhos out of contract 2024, Kimpembe and Bichiabu all out of contract.
I definitely re-up Bichiabu and Marquinhos for sure. Kimpembe, I have a think about it. But if somebody's going to give me real money for Kimpembe, because there have been rumours in the past that like Chelsea have been interested for good money. And when you've got a left-sided centre-back who's experienced at the top level, you probably can get quite a bit for them. So I would look at it from that point of view. But it's not like I think I am willing to gut the squad, but I don't think that the squad is really the major issue. I think the major issue is backing the manager to tell the squad what he wants from them, and when he doesn't get it, to bench who he wants.
Yeah,
that to
I
me
agree.
is a bigger issue.
I agree.
And I think guys like Vitinha can be really useful for the team.
Yeah, and also not having bloody sporting directors on touchlines or footballing consultory advisors in Luis Campos in front of Galtier on the touchline bellowing at players, get in the stands. Get in the stands. That won't be happening under my reign. You won't see me on the touchline. So any other sales you want to make, Dukes?
Yeah, I was much more dramatic, to be honest. Kimpembe gone for sure. I think he's overrated. I think he's a walking discipline problem as well. He averages a yellow card every 4 games for PSG.
I'm so
He's
glad.
got 5 red cards in his time at PSG. At the biggest moments in the Champions League, I think he's been, to be honest, a bit of an embarrassment, particularly against Man City in that semi-final.
Yeah.
I'm also getting rid of
He's a
Verratti. Verratti's gone.
Really?
Just
fans love Verratti.
I love
I'm
Verratti
a bit of a
too.
fan
I
of
think
Verratti.
he's a brilliant player,
Like
but
Verratti.
the players that I'm bringing in midfield, I think up it for the next 3-4 years. It's a good time to get rid of him because he's still got some value, and he's not necessarily the most serious guy off the pitch.
Still 26 appearances this season, though.
I know, but does pick up the odd niggling injury. Amazing passer, great servant to the club, but he's linked with Juventus. If Juventus want him, I think it wouldn't be the end of the
So
world.
Kimpembe and Verratti out the door.
Yeah, Carlos Soler, less dramatic. Hasn't really worked out at PSG at all. Renato Sanchez, just so injury prone, can't guarantee him. And as Pat says, I'm keeping Danilo Pereira.
You're keeping
Coutinho.
Danilo?
Yeah, he's useful because you can play at centre back.
Yeah, he's whatever.
I
he's
have to
fine.
say, you've culled the centre back region with Sergio Ramos out of contract.
I'm keeping Ramos, by the way.
You're going to re-up Ramos.
For 1 year.
Okay. Ooh, it's
Boy,
an interesting
boy.
one. Potentially, Kimpembe going.
Kimpembe, yeah.
Like, there's only 4 centre backs on the books.
Mukiele,
Skriniar's coming in.
Skriniar, Marquinhos.
Vichiabu.
Skriniar, I
Vichiabu.
forgot Lewis Campbell's already done the deal for Skriniar. He's replaced.
What happened to Diallo?
Sold.
Diallo's gone to... I can't remember where he is now.
Did he go permanently?
Leipzig? Yeah,
Leipzig.
Leipzig, yeah. Hasn't played a lot.
But either way, there's quite a culling going on there. And we are likely to be playing a back 4,
Yes.
aren't we?
I would not be using Ramos in a back 4.
I'm
He's
not
actually
either.
been
I've
alright
got a
this year.
problem
He's
there.
actually been
Yeah,
alright
but
this year.
largely
In the
when
centre
they've
of
been
back
playing in a
three.
back 3. Yeah, largely when Galtier has actually had a relative success recently moving into that back 3, hasn't he? And playing Danilo as
I
a
just think
centre
you get
back.
more money for Kimpembe, and it'd be a shame to lose him for free next year. So just sell him now.
Okay, so Kimpembe's going. I'm on a level with you two. You both don't like him as a player. Verratti, I'm not as convinced about.
Verratti's not a problem.
I'm
if you wanna
keeping
keep him,
Verratti.
I
Verratti
think-
to me is a big
Yeah,
player.
I think Verratti's going to be kept, especially if you're letting Soler go, you're letting Renato Sanchez go. I think there are already issues in that midfield. To be honest with you, I don't think Vitinha has been anywhere near good enough.
I don't mind Vitinha. Him and Fabian Ruiz, I definitely keep.
Yeah, I think they're massively upgradable areas, though. We also need a forward. I mean, Ashraf Hakimi's not had a great season, has he?
No.
At all. Mukiele started to fill in minutes, really, at that right-back slot more than ever.
But I also think that that's, and I'm sure we'll get onto this when we talk about formation. I think part of the issue there is that Nuno Mendes and Hakimi is an extremely attacking pair of fullbacks. And I think quite often you are probably going to want to do more of a Mukiele or even a Skriniar right back.
Right-back situation.
Yeah, like as in have them shift across when your left back goes forward. Like that, I think you want to do a little bit of that Arsenal or Man City thing sometimes.
Yeah.
Where you have a more reserved fullback who is basically a centre back in disguise or stepping into midfield. Because in the biggest games, certainly, unless you're playing 3-4-3, Mendes and Hakimi is just
Too
absolutely it's lethal in 2 directions.
Yeah, true.
Paredes also going on loan at Juve.
Yeah,
Hasn't
make
worked
that
out.
one permanent potentially. Okay, so we've culled a lot of players there. I think we've got. I don't think we get a small fee for Kimpembe, but I think we'll be looking at 30-40 million
35,
euros.
He's linked to that
maybe.
Atletico Madrid in January. I don't know whether that's going to happen now they've signed Siunchu, but someone like Spurs are probably stupid enough to sign Kimpembe.
Yeah, I think.
Boy.
To be fair, they need a left-sided
Centre
centre back, don't they? Likely Longlay's not
He's
going to
also,
be made
I'm being a
permanent.
bit harsh. He's not terrible. He's just got a discipline problem.
Okay, that's not what you think about Kimpembe.
He's a
in the
bozo.
comments below. He's got the bozo G.
He's got the Bozo G.
But there is a lot of additions needed, boys. If we're selling that many players, we're selling Sanchez. The squad, I already think, is pretty dust. Like,
It's thin.
when
Thin
you
now.
look to the bench, in that Champions League game against Bayern, as like a prime example, there's just nothing that's like coming off it to have big impacts. Then you look at Bayern's bench and you see, Sane's, Gnabry's on the
Mane.
bench, Mane's. I think PSG's is dust. I'm happy to get rid of a lot of the Carlos Solers, all of those sort of level players for 5 to 10 million euros. We do have slight FFP issues.
Do we?
Yeah.
What's our issue, boss?
There have been FFP crunches going on behind the scenes now for a little while at the club, which has obviously restricted wage and spending, which is why they haven't spent huge chunky fees on single players in recent years because of the 3-year period. And it hasn't been helped by the fact they have just been literally offloading money by the truckload to Kylian Mbappe at this stage. So we have got slight issues, but I think we can figure out
We're
workarounds.
letting
Messi's
Messi go, and Dukes is making a lot of sales. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, Dukes is not only making money on those sales, but culling the wage bill substantially.
And
I think
Messi's wages are probably $1 million a week.
And you can get rid of Neymar as well.
and the players we're talking about bringing in, like I've got a couple of big players I'm talking about bringing in, but like their wages are still going to be
Yeah.
significantly lower than their counterparts in those positions currently. And PSG as well. I think part of what we're arguing for here is, okay, the squad may look a bit thin, but what that means is in key moments, we are not bringing, Icardi off the bench. We're bringing Zaire Emery off the bench, or we're playing Hugo Ekitike. Like those are the things that they need to be doing. Timothée Pembele, like this is what they need to be doing as a club.
I think Hugo Ekitike's had a poor season though. I don't know whether he's going to be retained.
I
would be considering offers.
He's 20.
I would be considering offers.
He is 20 though.
Yeah.
I would be looking at that. I'd be thinking about that Xavi Simons buyback.
He was
All right,
one of
well,
my
let's come to the
suggestions.
additions then. Let's come to the additions because there are also, like Pat said, some academy players, i.e. Zaire Emery, Bichiabu, who have made impacts this season and likely to feature next season. But Donnarumma, we're happy with.
Yeah.
Sticking with Donnarumma, right?
Not been as good as this year as Navas was last year.
We've got the two fullbacks in place, even though they are slightly too attacking in
Yeah.
Nunmenj and Hakimi. We do have the option
Fine
of
for
playing
Liga,
Mukiele
but yeah.
there, don't we? So, are we starting with a centre back to partner Marquinhos?
Skriniar.
No, we've got Skriniar.
We're happy with that duo.
I'm
Great.
happy with
I
that.
think that would be a great duo.
Okay,
I think so.
Marquinhos and Skriniar as our centre-back duo. The back line is already complete.
And let's bear in mind, Skriniar played under Spalletti previously. And actually, we've
Yes.
got a lot of Italian speakers in the team in that we've got Fabian Ruiz, we've got Verratti,
Verratti.
we've got Marquinhos, we've got Skriniar, we've got Hakimi. We've got a load of guys here who either know the coach or can speak to him naturally. Like I think it's quite a good
Okay,
setup.
we need to move into the midfield though.
midfield.
Are you starting Verratti? You wanted
Yeah.
to
Well, I
sell
sold him.
Verratti.
So my
Big time.
Verratti replacement, I'm restructuring the midfield, but I'll start with just who I play as the DM, and I'm trying to get Florentino Luis at Benfica. Really, really good player. He's emerged under Roger Schmidt this year as one of their key men. Previously struggled a bit. He emerged first under Bruno Lage, I think in 18-19. And then Jorge Jesus came in, didn't really like him, got loaned to Monaco, got loaned to Getafe. But this year has been a key man. And he's just a massive defensive monster, really. I think it's 6 tackles and interceptions, very tidy on the ball, but not a very complicated player. Like, he's not going to try and dribble through the press particularly well. He's not going to try and take players on. He keeps it very simple. And he's only 20, 21. So he's at a prime age. He does have a big release clause. So the FFP issues might come in. It's 105 million euros, which is a problem.
Oh, that's a problem.
That makes me feel better about my midfield.
massive
chat then, 'cause I
problem.
was
It's a
thinking
big
it's-
outlay,
a
but I
massive
think
problem,
Benfica
mate.
would sell potentially below that.
And I bet his wages
Why would they?
are-
Why would they? They've proven recently in year, sell by sell that they are not willing to deal anything lower than
I
like 100
thought, to be honest,
million.
we had a bigger budget, boss. He's
I
quite
mean, there's
expensive.
budget, and then there's 105 million euros on a defensive
And my
midfield.
striker's going to be pretty
You're
expensive as
chucking
well.
some kids on loan though. Like, there's definitely some dodgy dealings to be done here. Like, you are the sporting director of PSG.
Yeah.
You're telling me
Can you
you've
get
never
it
done,
done?
you've never done a little bit of financial crime.
Well, I'm just saying, I think that's an awful lot of money to spend on a defensive midfielder when you've got players in similar roles. We mentioned him last week's show, like Ugarte, who's got a 50 million euro release clause.
I didn't want to mention him again, though.
I know, and that's fair enough.
Florentino
And I
Luis
think
is more of a passer as
for
well.
the,
right?
for the content purposes, that's totally fair enough. But I do think, there are problems with spending 100 million on deep lying midfielders, and I think we've to a level seen that with Enzo already. At
Who made
Chelsea.
Enzo great?
There's only so much.
He has been fantastic.
I wouldn't say he's been fantastic. Honestly,
I would.
I think for
I really
100 million euros,
Yeah.
it's almost like a lose-lose for
I
a
feel-
player in
I
that
do
defensive
I
midfield
understand
position
what you
because
mean.
you can't quantify how good he
He can't
is.
single-handedly win you a game. in
Exactly,
central midfield,
and
sure.
that immediately becomes a problem, doesn't it? I think that's probably too much money for me, Dukes. Especially given that I'm perfectly happy to keep Marco Verratti in that role
Fair
going
enough.
forward. The one thing I am going to say, boys, and I'm giving you this quite late in the day, so this is a bit of a stitch-up, but I am going to favour any Parisians you're throwing towards
I've got
the
some
table.
French coming my way.
If there's a bit of French coming my way after Al Halafi's comments, what we've said about a reconnection with the fans, if we are bringing back any of the Parisian boys that we've sent out and just discarded in the past, I wouldn't be adverse to it. But having said that, I'm stitching you up by saying it very late. So
I think
if
you
there's
should just do your suggestions in French, Pat, and that will win him over.
I'm not going to do them in French. But, well, I think you could look at somebody like Heffron Thuram. I think he'd be an interesting kind
my
of...
number 2.
I think he'd be an interesting player for you to look at. But, to me, the strategy here is let's do what Real Madrid have been doing, which means paying top dollar, but paying top dollar for young stars who are already good and could be great, as opposed to paying top dollar for big household names. So I go and look at Moises Caicedo, honestly, because what I want here is a guy who can play with Verratti now, but could potentially replace him in future. And I do think Caicedo is interesting. Plus, I look at the midfield, and actually I look at the side generally, and I think we're not the most physical team.
Yeah, weak.
Like we are weak,
Soft.
and like Vitinha, nice little passer, almost no defensive presence, 5'7". You know, like Caicedo's got 11 kilos on and 3 inches on him. Like that's what I want. Like we need some presence in there, and I think Verratti, you know, is actually, you know, a stronger presence than you think. Ruiz is bigger than you think, but I think Caicedo would be a really interesting candidate. Obviously, he's 21 years old. I think you probably get him for about 80. Huge defensive output this season in a side which dominates possession, a great passer, and 21, so probably 3 or 4 years away from seeing the full version of what he can be. But more importantly, he actually gives us someone who can cover ground in the midfield. I like the idea of playing him at the base and freeing Verratti up to have a freer role, because Verratti can be creative from midfield. He can move into the final third.
Yeah.
But he's also got huge defensive output. He generally wants to dribble. And I think that we want to get that out of him. So that means having more of a sitting player like Florentino Luis. I think if Florentino Luis is over 100 mil, why would you not pay 80 mil and get Caicedo, who is a much more proven player? And I don't know. I just think that this is a kind of obvious thing, especially given that like his volume of passing is similar to Vitinha. His progressive passing is better than Vitinha. Playing for Brighton, you know,
I have no problem with axing Vitinha. I don't think he's had a good season at all.
Yeah, I think he's a useful player. But to me, I put someone like Caicedo in there. I say to Verratti, you now have more freedom to get forward. Fabian Ruiz has played 6, 8, 10 pretty much everywhere during his midfield career and can be hugely creative. So I also want him to have more freedom. This suddenly gives me a pair of free 8s in the style of Arsenal, Manchester City, in the style of Napoli to some degree. And it gives us just a huge physical presence at the back, which coupled with Skriniar coming in, suddenly I think that's a really imposing, you know, kind of back triangle there of Marquinhos, Skriniar.
I think there's a massive problem with physicality in this PSG squad. I don't think there's anybody that's nearly combative enough. Like Verratti is a very combative footballer in his style, but not physically. So I think this is a very, very good shout, Moises Caicedo.
Yeah, I wanted to suggest someone French, Joe. I know you love the French. And yeah, Kefren Turan was going to be my suggestion. Also, look at Quadio Kone as well at Borussia Mönchengladbach. So my dream midfield was Florentino Ruiz. Looks like we're not going there, but it's fine. We can go with Verratti. Fabian Ruiz on the left. And I wanted either Kefren Turan or Quadio Kone on the right. Quadio Kone is a good defensive midfielder, but he's actually much better breaking. He's breaking forward than going back. And Kefren Turan can do a bit of everything. I actually think he might have a bigger future than his brother Marcus, because Marcus's finishing can be a little bit erratic, whereas Kefren Turan looks sensational in a Nice side that have been very up and down this year. They were under Lucien Favre earlier in the season. That went really, really badly. And then Didier Degas came in, went unbeaten through his first 12 games, I believe. And then recently they sort of hit the stops, as it were. But Kefren Turan, really, really good progressive carrier, unbelievable in tight spaces, very fun player to watch, and actually has the frame on him. He's not built out enough yet that he could actually, you know, become a bit more physically imposing as well. And I don't think Nice would actually sell him for that much, because there's so much change potentially behind the scenes there, with Sir Jim Ratcliffe potentially having to give up his ownership there. I think they take the money, and he's really, really impressed and has got Ligue 1 experience as well.
Yeah, it's such a shame Renato Sanchez couldn't fill that role, isn't it, of like the drive from midfield, but his body just... And it's not there, is it?
It's not a disaster as well if he stays around as a squad player. You know, if you can't shift him for anything, and he does get fit at some stage, I do think that he's a really useful impact sub. You just can't rely on him. Like, that's fine. But I think, you know, Zaire Emery, there's interesting stuff going on in this.
There is. I really like the Caicedo suggestion. I do like the Caicedo suggestion. The thing is, could we take Caicedo and Turan?
Yeah.
Could we go for a double
cheaper than
hit there?
Florentino Luis and Turan? Yeah.
You know,
I think
we can take Turan for let's put a ballpark figure of 30 out there, and then 80 on Caicedo.
I think it'd be more like 50 million euros maybe.
And I think there's this thing as well where, like, when you're a Premier League fan, people often kind of like assume that you overrate physicality, but I do think that this is the way the bigger teams in Europe are going, like, right now. I mean, the best side, Bayern have always been a pretty physical side, but you look at Arsenal on the up, like, are going out this summer to try and make their team physically bigger. Man City are playing probably the biggest side we've ever seen Guardiola team play. Even Napoli, you know, when you look at Osimhen, Kvicha, Anguissa, Kim Min-jae, like, these are guys who are super combative, super aggressive, big guys.
Super physical.
They need some of that because, that Bayern exit, I think, was actually really shocking in how meek it was. It just never looked like it was in doubt.
Even look at the way Real Madrid have recruited recently. Camavinga, super physical. Bellingham, ground eater.
Using Valverde
super
more,
physical. Valverde's usage, exactly. Even players like Vinicius and Rodrigo. I think physicality in the future of this sport is going to be massive. So I'm happy to take Thuram and Caicedo in there as we are axing midfielders.
Really nice.
We're axing midfielders. As I said before, I'm happy to get rid of Vitinha. More than happy to get rid of players like Carlos Soler. So we're just bidding them.
There's going to be a bit of cash.
We're just bidding them. Okay. Next suggestion, please.
Okay, so going to the forward line, I wanted a right winger that could also play centrally because I think if Kylian Mbappe is playing on the left, I'm also bringing in a target man. I think they could work quite well as a duo.
I think we need two forwards.
Yeah, this player could play as a 10. He could play on the right. He's also played on the left this year. And I'm just activating that buyback on Xavi Simons. It's just so easy. I think it's 10 to 12 million euros this summer.
It is.
It goes up every single summer.
He's got to want to come back, though.
He does. But I think if he gets told, look, you are going to be one of the guys that helps replace Lionel Messi, and there is a slot for you in this front line, and you deserve to be there on the basis of your performances this year. Like, he has been unbelievable for PSV. And I remember tuning in to watch them earlier this year when they played Arsenal in the Europa League. And there is a baby in the background, but we'll carry on. And I remember I was very impressed by him. And I tuned in actually to watch Cody Gakpo, but actually stayed for Xavi Simons. He was remarkable that day. I think it was Kieran Tierney that he gave a particularly difficult time to. And he's got 16 Eredivisie goals. I think only one player's got more than that. He's not actually the most creative player, but in terms of his dribbling and his ability to get the ball into the box in dangerous areas, to get into the final third, I think he's really, really exciting. And obviously, as history at PSG, I think the Ultras would like him to be back. And I think he deserves to be back. He's also built out a lot this year.
We talked about Xavi Simons, didn't we, with Zach last week or the week before? And, a lot of the comments at home, rightly, thanks for the advice here, from the scouting army you guys were saying that he simply isn't going to want to go back. It might be a 12 million euro clause, but he as a player has taken risks consistently throughout his career to leave big clubs. We saw it at Barcelona, now we see it at PSG. Why is he going to want to take the risk of going and being a bench option again?
But he's starting for me in this side. He's starting.
Yeah, exactly.
He's starting on the right wing. He's coming in as a number 10.
He's starting under Mourinho.
He's potentially playing with Neymar and in and out of that 10 role behind Mbappe and the striker I'm going to mention.
I think
it's a really exciting time.
Yeah, exactly. I think clubs can change kind of ethos pretty quickly. And if the right manager's coming in, like, okay, would he go there if it was going to be a Mourinho type? Like where Messi was there, then probably not. But if he went there and there's no outstanding right wing option in the squad, and it was someone like Nagelsmann or Spalletti or somebody who he felt would give him a chance and a proper run in the side, then of course he'd go. They're going to improve his wages. They're a big team.
I'm happy to go in and say, look, Xavi, let's have a chat. I've just got very sneaky suspicions he would say no. I think he might be thinking of himself, get another season in the Eredivisie, playing every minute of every game. And
Pat, did you have another forward?
Yeah, I've got a couple.
Pooed on mine.
I'm not pooed on it. I really like it, but I just feel like we're going to struggle to convince him.
I think you have the conversation at the very least.
You can have the conversation. I'll pick up the phone.
Take him to a nice Parisian restaurant.
And also, this is like meant to be a multi-year project. I think part of this is going to be that you say to him, say you did sign like Thuram, Florentino Luis, like guys like that, or Caicedo. Then after a year, he sees that those guys have been plugged into the side, have got tons of minutes, have been trusted. Young players like Zaire Emery are coming into the squad more and more. Then he's gonna say, maybe they were telling the truth. So I think what you need from this winger, you need someone defensively sound. Mm-hmm. I want someone who's a good dribbler. I want some physicality, which can be aggression rather than just like height. I want somebody creative. I have a little look and see if there's any wiggle room in the agreement taking Kulusevski permanently to Spurs. Ooh. I think you have to have a question because he's the right age. He's absolutely massive.
Coming off a bad season.
Not when he's played. He just hasn't been fit. I mean, and who has had a good season apart from Kane?
Yeah. I have been a bit disappointed with him, given his first 6 months.
But I think he's been in and out. But I think Kulusevski is an interesting guy to take a look at because he clearly has superstar potential. He just needs to be fit. If you can't do that, rumours that Rafinha could be on his way out of Barcelona has obviously previously been excellent in Liga at Rennes. Apparently gettable for kind of 60, 70 mil, 26. So I think that's kind of fine. If you can't get him, I'd have a think about Mitoma. Talent-wise, I love Jadon Sancho.
You're just
Gutting
Brighton.
Brighton.
Talent-wise, I love Jadon Sancho, but he doesn't have the work rate we need or the physical presence we need. But left-footed right winger, Rafinha, huge defensive output when he was at Leeds. Still pretty good defensive output. Everyone thinks that hasn't had a great
He's actually
season
been
for Barca.
alright for
In
Barca.
1900 minutes, he's got 14 goal involvements. His XG and XA per 90 are at 0.84. This is absolutely bananas.
I think even Barca fans performed a bit of a U-turn on Rafinha towards
they
the back
hated
end of the
him
season.
pre-Christmas, didn't they?
Yeah, they were not Rafinha's biggest fan at the start.
And I think
by
some
the
of
back
this-
end they liked him.
I think some of this is Grealish, the kind of Grealish idea as well, of like, well, this is what we think we're getting when we play a player in this position. But Rafinha is an enormous progressive passer.
Yeah.
Great dribbler. He's in the top 3% of wingers for progressive passes received, so he's a huge outlet. 3.3 passes into the penalty area per 90. That's the top 1% in his position. 2.5 key passes. This is all elite. And you've got to bear in mind that if Messi goes, Messi's season this year has been coming much deeper. You know, he's been doing so much build-up. That is something you are going to have to think about replacing. So, I don't know, like, La Liga actually has the deepest blocks in Europe. It has the lowest goals per game of any of the top 5 leagues. It's a really defensive division. So the fact that he's been doing this in La Liga, I think, is highly impressive, and that he was effective in the Premier League, and that he was effective in Ligue 1. So top 11% of players for carries into the penalty area too. Basically, if you need to run your attack through Rafinha, you can.
Yeah.
But if you don't, and you just need somebody who can either be a goal scorer in the final third, or a dribbler, or a defensive winger, he can do all that stuff. I mean, I think that he's also really rarely dispossessed, so he's going to help our possession game. He's not going to mind being second fiddle / third fiddle to Neymar and Mbappe. He is not going to be there for the paycheck. He's going to be excited to be there and to be valued. I think that you can get him because Barcelona are going to have to do something financially.
I think Barcelona look like they're quite keen to.
Yeah,
There's been rumours, haven't they, heavily linking him with Newcastle in recent weeks.
I think he's a fantastic player. I think he's a really good player. And again, super combative. That's what we want. We need somebody who just gives that presence. And in the long run, if Neymar goes at some stage, I think you can still have Rafinha there on the right wing, and Mbappe can go to the left. You can play someone through the middle. Mbappe can stay up front. You can target a left winger. There are all sorts of options here.
Yeah,
I think he just slightly suffered at the start of this year because Ousmane Dembele was in great form. And when Ousmane Dembele is fit and on form, he is one of the best right wingers in the world. And Rafinha was maybe a little bit erratic in the first half of the season, but you can see in every game there's 2 or 3 moments of just extreme quality with Rafinha.
Yeah.
Ultimately
Both
more
suggestions are
reliable
great.
than Dembele as well.
Both suggestions are really, really good there. Again, do you know what another player I think is such a shame he's going Chelsea is Nkunku. It would have been lovely to bring him back to Paris.
That would have been a lovely story, yeah.
But I just don't think, obviously he's gone Chelsea, so...
And he'd probably have to play on the right or something.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I just don't know if there's a natural...
There is too many
fit
left
for him.
wingers in this squad, really, isn't there? Because Neymar and Mbappe kind of want to fill a similar sort of role. Really. They both want to be the inside left, don't they?
I think part of this is teaching Mbappe to play centre forward.
Well, he's not going to, though, is he?
Doesn't want
He
to?
doesn't want to.
But it's all right if he drops out to the left wing, if you have a system where when you go left, Neymar goes into the centre. Like part of that is going to be like training them to function well together. Because we are also seeing this happen because of the paucity of top-class centre forwards. We're seeing more sides experiment with like versatile attackers like Gabi Jesus, even Osimhen, who's played wide at different stages, Nkunku, like these... And Bayern, who just have like no centre forward at all. Teams are doing this more and more.
Yeah. But we have seen him talk about wanting to play off the pivot, wanting to play off the central striker.
Bring forward a
Boo-hoo.
pivot.
I think it's
Do what you're
very
told.
close between those two. I might even throw that one to the comments. What do you guys at home think? Xavi, Simmons, or Rafinha to
Two
play
good
on the
options.
right-hand side? 2 good options. Poles apart in terms of fee because we would be saving big bucks. Xavi Simmons, of course, has a €12 million buyback clause for PSG that they can activate this summer if he wants to come back. And Rafinha, Barca looking to offload. You're probably looking at a similar sort of fee they paid for him. 60, 70 million euros, whatever it ended up being. Okay, striker.
Yeah.
I do believe they need a guy.
Tough though.
I mean, if you're getting Spalletti, Victor Osimhen would obviously be the dream. And I'm increasingly confident that they could get him because it seems like Man United have kind of sort of angled more towards Harry Kane.
United have got no money, mate.
Well, yeah, this is true. So, yeah, maybe you won't go for him. Bayern, there was talks that they were quite close to signing Osimhen, but they've had quite a disappointing season. I don't know whether he'd rather join PSG than Bayern in many ways. But the guy I'm suggesting, I think is more realistic. He's French. It's Randall Colomwani. at Eintracht Frankfurt. Really versatile, can play in a number of roles, but has played primarily up front this year. And I think he's had an absolutely superb debut Bundesliga season, given that it was only 1 year at Nantes where he really, really played well. So he's got Ligue 1 experience. He's French. Nearly won the World Cup for France, of course, with that unbelievable Martinez save. But yeah, this year, 14 goals and 10 assists in the league. Super creative, linked up really effectively with Lindstrom and Kamada. And it's been a difficult year for Eintracht Frankfurt because obviously they won the Europa League last year. They lost Kostic in the summer, their key creator over the last few years. And they've still had an okay season. Glasner's now leaving at the end of this year. They slightly disappointed in the Champions League in that group with Marseille and Spurs. That was a sort of group that they could have got out of. So that was a little bit disappointing. But Randal Colomwani, like, you can't. He's one of the, I think it's 5 or 6 players to get over 10 goals and 10 assists in the league.
Yeah,
I
know, like
been,
Messi.
Yeah, and Odegaard and players like that. And he's just been absolutely sensational. So yeah, I think he'd be around 70 million euros, 80 million euros.
I think
that Frankfurt project is kind of coming towards the end as well.
But we've seen reports, haven't we, in the German press where they are supposedly talking to Bayern Munich about a potential move there, and the fee they're looking at is over 100 million. They want the 100 million.
I think he's massively overpriced.
They've put that out into the world. They want the 100 million figure.
Yeah, I mean, I want my hair back, but it's not happening.
And he's massively overperformed as well. His expected goals and assists this season, like, hugely overperformed them. He's had some injury issues. He's also a little bit older than I'd want him to be, in the sense that, like,
what is he, 25?
He's 23, 24.
24, okay.
But like,
is that old now?
No,
23, 24?
Okay, but if you had this output at 21, then we'd say there's probably another level to go to. If this is your output at 23, 24, this might be your level, is what I'm saying. I think, yeah, he's overpriced, and I don't think he really is a true striker, to be honest, as well. Like, I think he wants to
the Mbappe inside
often
left.
play wide as well. Yeah,
I
like the
Mbappe
player.
could work very well together with Xavi Simons floating behind.
I just think if I want a true alternative, I do just go and maybe get Højlund, someone like that.
Oh,
I'm like, what do I want? A big boy. I want a great big boy. So I go and I'm like, who's a big boy? Who's the biggest boy you've got? And Højlund is a big boy. Truly, I mean, what are we talking about here? If we need wide players, like Mbappe's been elite off the right, he's been elite off the left. We've got Neymar. I'm obviously angling for Rafinha or Xavi Simons. I think would also be great. I want a genuine alternative.
We're
I worry
PSG
about
here.
Højlund.
We're PSG. Can we not just go and get Osimhen? I agree.
I don't know. Can we?
Fee.
Yeah, could do.
Oh,
is there any guarantee they accept the fee?
NASA. I'll get NASA.
Is there any guarantee they take it?
Well, we've got Spalletti. We bought Spalletti. We nicked him. Well,
managers
managers
are much more contractually available than players are. Like, it's perfectly possible that Napoli say, no, we're not selling him, and you're like, oh.
I'm going to throw another name into the mix here.
God,
We've
here we
spoken
go.
about a lot on the channel, but is it not worth going for Harry Kane?
No, it's not.
Not that
Why?
money.
They're going to sell
Not
for
that
a
money,
lot
and he
less.
doesn't. I don't think he
PSG.
wants to join PSG.
Defensive passenger. He is a striker who wants to get on the ball a lot. I don't think you want your striker on the ball a lot when you've got Mbappe and Neymar. Your striker needs to be willing to basically do a lot of thankless off the ball running. I want somebody more mobile than him. I want somebody younger than him. I want somebody with lower wages than him. I want somebody who costs less than him.
Shot me down there. And
He's also not a pivot as well. The thing I worry about with Højlund is he's really only broken into that first team at Atalanta as a starter since back January.
Oh, sure.
And, you know, Randal
risk,
Colomani's 4 years older than him, has experience in Liga. And Højlund, I just don't think Atalanta are going to sell because Luis Muriel and Zapata are aging out. One of them might even leave this summer. And I think he just needs more time developing. I also think there's going to be interest in Ademola Lookman. So I think he's the more likely of the Atalanta duo to go. So I think Randal Colomani, of all the players, is probably the most affordable, achievable. And yeah, if you can get Osimhen, you obviously do that. But I think Colomani is a good alternative.
It does become a major issue. The striking market this summer is a problem because every bastard wants a striker.
I thought you were going to shove in Vlahovic as well, but
I think I'd rather keep my powder dry than go for Colomani. Honestly, I think in that situation, what I do is get 2 wide guys, like get Rafinha and Simons, and then wait a year and see what happens. Because I just don't think he's remotely the player that you'd expect for 100 mil, and I think. Yeah, as you say, the market is pretty thin. Like guys like Højlund, they're not perfect, or Gonzalo Ramos, you know, they're not perfect. They're not kind of nailed on to come in and be superstars. But you've got to kind of take some of these gambles in the way that Real Madrid have and accept that some of them are going to work out and some of them aren't. Because once these guys become superstars, you can't really get them. There are so few of them.
Yeah. But, I mean, a player like Højlund, I think he probably is going to move this summer. it's whether or not do you take. I know you're saying about waiting here, but do you just take the gamble on Højlund in the hope that?
I think that's a big risk.
But then you've got Ekitike there anyway. Who
Yeah,
was
but
the gamble last year?
Yeah, but then Ekitike, I think we can potentially sell him. But again, this is what I'm saying. If you get 2 wingers, then you say, right, we're going to roll with Ekitike, and if he isn't great, then we're going to have a little bit of a down year. But let's be honest, in a down year, we're still going to win Liga. We're still going to get to the knockout stages of the Champions League, probably, unless we get a really unlucky group. And that's okay. The whole point is PSG have to learn to be okay with building for 2 seasons, 3 seasons from now, rather than every year going, oh no, we didn't win everything, like throwing their toys out of the pram and buying another superstar.
Yeah.
Obviously, if you can get Osimhen, get Osimhen. Like, I don't think either of us object to that.
I actually agree. I think just do your arse on Osimhen. Like, just break the bank.
You do still need a winger, though.
Get it done. Yeah.
I'm not sure you can do Osimhen plus our central midfield options plus a right winger, and the right winger is
quite expensive.
The right winger is non-negotiable.
That's why I was saving money on Xavi Simons.
Yeah, it's a problem. Unless you guys were willing to, sell another asset, a major asset, an Achraf Hakimi. Could he be sold?
Yeah. I'd rather sell him than Nuno Mendes.
I think there are teams that would be very interested in Hakimi, even at 50, 60 million euros.
Yeah, all right, fine.
Hasn't had an amazing season and offsets the right back role with a player like Mukiele out there, doesn't it? And allows.
It really depends what manager you bring in, because if they do go for someone like Conte and he wants to play 5 at the back, there's not really a better wing back.
Well, I've taken Spalletti, mate. It's the executive decision has been made on Spalletti.
He's quite a different player to Giovanni Di Lorenzo, but Di Lorenzo has been awesome this year as well. I'd probably keep Hakimi.
Okay. Well, we're struggling in terms of finances here, guys, but we have come to the decision.
I sold about 12 players.
I still think we haven't got enough money to sign Osimhen and those wingers. You're probably right. And Kolo Muani, I think, is still going to cost.
I think it'd be 90. If someone actually offered Frankfurt 90 million euros, I'd struggle to see them turning it down.
How do you think that team does in the Champions League?
What team?
Under Spalletti. With Donnarumma, Hakimi, Marquinhos, Skriniar, Nunmensch, Caicedo, Verratti,
Fabian Ruiz
Thuram, Mbappe, Neymar, Osimhen.
It should do really well. It should reach the semi-finals, but it is a lot of change in 1 year. They should probably aim to win the Champions League within 2 years, but as Pat says, not panic if they don't win it in the first.
Pat, how do you think it gets on?
I think it's better. I still think it's an issue. I mean, in the Champions League, I wouldn't play Mbappe and Neymar on the wings and play Nuno Mendes and Hakimi on the wings, on the wing back slots. You just can't do it.
Attacking.
You can't do it. It will not work. Like, it's too dangerous. You'd be better off playing a 3-back and doing something different there, or playing Mbappe through the middle so that you could play a more defensive right wing option.
Or like Juan Bernat.
Well, then you could field Hakimi as a right winger, for example, and play Mukiele behind him. You could do something like that in the Champions League, but you have to customize. I think the days of like the first choice 11 that plays every game are gone. And I think you might have to accept that the way we play in Liga is not the way that we play in the Champions League. They are 2 very different competitions.
Yeah, I agree. All right, so that was our fix. In fact, before we go, let's get a prediction who you think will get the job. Who is going to get the PSG job in the summer? Because Galtieri is going to go.
I don't think it's going to be Spalletti.
No.
It feels like it could be Mourinho.
I think it might be Mourinho. Friends with Campos, friends with
I don't think
pretty
it's
much
the worst,
everyone.
For all the reasons I said at the start. I don't think it's the worst.
He's still got some juice. I just think that he needs to cheer up. Like, honestly, he needs to cheer up. Like, that sounds ridiculous, but he needs to go in and somebody needs to say to him, we need Mourinho from 10 years ago, where you would honestly like burn down the stadium to defend your players, as opposed to the Mourinho now who's like, well, they let me down, they didn't do enough, like, it's embarrassing, like, everyone's just out to get me. You need the old Mourinho.
If he gets the PSG job, that is such a remarkable turnaround from the end of his time at Spurs. It is insane what he's done. He's managed to go to Roma, win at least 1 trophy, maybe 2, get them into the Champions League if they win the Europa League this year, and then gets the PSG job. He's kind of completed it in 2 years. It's amazing.
Yeah. All right, so that was our fix for PSG. Let us know what you thought of it in the comments below. As we said at the start, we are shooting this at Clubhouse 5, so make sure you come down here to watch all of your sporting events. Put a link to that in the description below. If you enjoyed this video, hit the like button, hit subscribe. Thanks very much for watching, everybody. See you later.